Hello everyone. I am Pratishtha, a third year student of RML, and here I am with the first episode on our debut discussion series, Law Life KORERO, the RML edition, which is brought by the seminar committee of RML NLU. And the first episode herein would be focusing on research as a career. Our first episode is graced with the eminent presence of Mr. Shashank Pandey. For some, he's a friend who they spend their prominent 5 years with. For some, a close senior and a mentor who they would often come to for guidance. But for all of us, he's an eminent alumni of our college, who's not only made a name for himself, but has also carved a unique path from which I believe many would not only be able to relate to, but also gain valuable knowledge from. Mr. Pandey graduated RML in 2021 and is currently a LAMP Fellow at PRS Legislative Research. Over the years, he has accumulated invaluable experience from multiple internships in various fields and institutes of law such as research, litigation, corporate, etc., and has utilized the plethora of opportunities unabridged since his first year, which culminated into a holistic development of self for him, as we can see. He's also done prominent work in social service, being the co-founder of an NGO, a mentor in teaching programs with IDIA, and a number of his articles focusing on the social legal arena. And because of which we believe it is the most befitting to have him headline this series. We welcome you, sir, and we would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude for taking time out to sit with us and to give us all your valuable insights.
Hello, Pratishtha. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I wish you guys all the best for the new venture that you are taking in. And I hope I can give few valuable advice, if not all.
Yes. Okay, sir. So I think should we start with our question or
Yeah, yeah, please.
okay, sir. So knowing the fact that you just graduated, it's been a couple of months only. So how would you
Yeah.
describe your journey in RML? And now that you've graduated, would you look at it differently?
So that's a very tough question to ask because it's something asking what I learned. So I would say that the simple answer is that I couldn't have opted for a better career in the last 5 years. Other than the law, and the 5 years in law school, especially RML, has developed me in a way which I look as a overall and a very comprehensive shift from what I was during the school, because I come from the science background and law was something very different, and I haven't studied humanities. So it was getting into a different very venture, and and yet it was something that immediately clicked. So looking back, I think it's an experience that you won't regret in a law school. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any personal anecdotes that you would like to share with the professors,
Yeah,
maybe,
I mean,
or
there are so many. I mean, the 5 years is such a long time. Half a decade is a very, very long time to have so many memories, and I do have a lot of it. Obviously, I can't share many because they are too personal. But I mean, there's so many. Like during the first years when we got here, obviously we had that interaction, and that you had this fear, right, of getting into a new place and getting into a new, entirely different arena, like law. And people from diverse background come from, people from diverse geography in our country come from, and even few people from even outside the India. Yeah. So that was one of the experience that I remember. The first day I got in the law school, the first day was very interesting because I was really fascinated by the infrastructure that our college had. Okay. So yeah, I went for a stroll, and obviously there is a fear element, so you wanted to see things, but also you don't want to see people, because you can't decipher who is who. Like maybe if you're like it is your batchmate, but you don't know yet, right? And then the first year is obviously a very obviously the first year should be spent just experiencing and not deciding on anything, I think, in a law school, because 5 years is a long time to make decision and good decisions. Like, and then I think second and third years are completely about experimenting, because I see many people get so overburdened regarding making choices or opting for a field in their second year only. I don't think we are mature enough in our second year of law school to make any sensible decision, right? and we shouldn't make any decisions. It's just about experimenting, and then it just clicks, right? I think these are the fundamentals. One should remember that don't overburden yourself with, as soon as you get into the law school, 5 years is a very long time. You'll get an ample opportunity, and you might go into the field you never thought of going into. Like, for example, like, as I am expecting that you will throw in one question of them wherein I can tell that, and I've expected that I will go in the policy or the research space, right? I think that is the stuff you should remember, that don't overburden yourself with the choices in the initial phase.
So, as someone who has experienced both the physical aspect of college as well as the virtual aspect of college, seeing that the
Yeah.
lockdown took place in 2020 only, so how was it like that for you? And are there, because like I personally believe, as something that I personally have been through as well. I'm so sorry for the disturbance. Yeah. So as someone, like, I feel it's not kind of, it's definitely very different, being in college physically around people who are constantly working or constantly doing something, and then being at home, being the seeing that the environment at home could be very different. So how was it like that for you, and how can someone keep themselves motivated while being in a virtual classroom or being in a virtual school, so to say?
There are two things that I want to point it out here. The first thing is that digital learning or a digital education can never be a substitution for the physical learning or physical education, right? It can always be an addition, never a substitution, right? And second part, which I think the people in a law school who are hearing this, I want to just acknowledge, I want to ask them to just have that is mind that you come from a very privileged background. First, to be able to access a digital device. Second, you able to access in a proper space, because and few of us might not be, even in a law school, few of us might not have a proper space to attend a digital space or a digital class, right? So I think the people who do have these facilities should acknowledge that they are in that top 10% that have the proper access and all the facilities, right? So yeah, you'd ask me what has been a different experience. I mean, it had been totally different. We when we were in our just about to get into our fifth year, the COVID came, and we still, like, entire our batch still regrets not being able to enjoy that one last year of the college, which is supposed to be the fun part, and it's supposed to be the period when you make the most memories, when you realize that you are very soon going to leave the college, right? So I think it has been a totally different from academic point of view. There is advantage of digital space that you get a lot of time, right? Because you are sitting in the comfort of your home, right? And you can do stuff that you wouldn't have done had it been in college, because we must acknowledge that if we go to college, like with classes physically, and you're not coming back before 4 or 5, because then you get to hang out, go on our Sampark Plaza or go out for some random stuff, right? So these are the not the if I may say so, the distractions that you have in the digital space, right? I think academically you get a lot of time, and you get also get time to actually think about your future, right? Because now you are sitting in the ideally, if I may say so, your home, and you'll get those thoughts ki, what after this, right? I think that's an added advantage, that you start getting prepared, like you start preparing for the what lies ahead after the law school. So I think at the time when that this digital period or digital education period came for us was an added advantage for us, because it suddenly made us realize that now we have to think about our future, right? So we started making efforts, right? But now as you guys are in second, third, first, second, third year, so I think you guys spent first 2 years or first 1.5 years in this digital space, right? So you guys don't have that. You guys didn't get that opportunity of experimenting that I was talking about. So I'll request that when you get now you are in second or third year, don't overburden yourself that now 2 years are gone, right? Because you haven't had experience of that law school.
Mm-hmm.
Take it in. That's also very essential, because I think that shapes your choices more than you acknowledge it. So I'll believe that digital space has been an advantage, but don't completely rely on it, because it can never substitute a physical learning or physical education.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So, seeing that I was going through your LinkedIn profile and I found out that you founded the website, which, by the way, is very resourceful, the Law Culture. in the year of
Yeah.
2020 only, in June, if I'm not wrong. So this was during the lockdown only. So how did that come about into place?
Actually, so it's not 2020. There is a background story to it. So I was in my second or third year. I don't remember it, but I do remember that period when I found it, because it was the period. If you because I think you guys must be in a school. There was a period in sometimes in 2019, 2018, September, right, and September October period, and when a lot of major judgments on 377, on adultery, on live
Yeah,
streaming
yeah,
were
yeah.
all lined up in just 1 week. Like
Yeah, yeah,
Supreme
definitely.
Court
Yeah.
had
It was
delivered
in
all these judgments.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah, so all these judgments in a single week, and it was like a major tectonic shift in judicial space, judicial academia in just 1 week, right? And I had so many thoughts. Like when I got to read the judgment, I had so many thoughts. Ki, this is this, right? So I wanted a space wherein I can write. So I randomly started my own personal blog. So wherein I just wrote whatever the analysis I drew out of those judgments and sort of summary, so that people who are not from law background could understand the implication of the value that those judgments hold in our practical life, even in a common person's life, that ultimately is going to affect every person in India, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
started that as a personal blog, and then the in 2020, as the lockdown kicked in and we were like sitting at home, so one of my really good friend actually suggested that why don't you expand it. So I had no plans of expanding it, so I'll give all this credit to him for coming up with an idea that we should expand it. And then so I thought, okay, let's do it. If you think it's a good idea, we can do it. So he came up with the idea. Then we came up with a team of members who are from different law schools in different years. And then we came up, and it all just panned out very well. I would say so, and I would give a lot of credit to the team which we formed. And I think since then, and the advisory board, we got a really good
Yeah,
advisors
yeah.
from advisory board who were very keen on being on joining us, right? So I'll also acknowledge their valuable advice in our platform. So I think it all just panned out very well. It was not at all planned. It was just impulsive decision making, and that has been since then. And now I think I'm not very, I'm not able to give a lot of time to it, but it's still going very strong. And I
Yeah.
think it's very soon going to be a research center.
Oh,
So yeah, so that is something. Yeah, everything is just panning out very well. It's not nothing was planned, but yeah, I think now it has expanded so much that we can expand it even more.
okay. So we wish you all the best for your for future endeavor regarding relating to the law culture, and we hope it grows even more. So now coming on to my third question. So this could be a personal belief of mine, but I think that RML is not a very, I would say, a very friendly space for people with disabilities. Be it the
Yeah.
infrastructure there, or be it the way the curriculum is designed, or just the the general setup of the entire college. I personally think that it's not able to make a very safe and a very accommodating space for those with any kind of disability. And I mean, I feel few students do in their personal own capacity as much as they can to help people to kind of make it seem a very acclimatizing environment. But I feel as long as the structure is not provided by the college, we can't do much on our own selves. So what was your experience regarding to that?
I mean, this is very personal because that's the stuff I have worked. I was really very clear about that I have to work upon, right? Because I am also one of the person with disability, so it's also very personal, and I relate to it because I'm in a position wherein I can make a difference from some of the person, because I know the law, I know the policies, I have an understanding. I've been privileged enough to get that education. So you rightly pointed out that our campus is not very accessible. Now you guys, the ramps and the lift that you guys see was just constructed last year. It was not there before that, right? In spite of being a legal mandate of having it, right? So when I was in the college, I wrote a lot of letters to the administration, to even our VC, former VC, right? That our campus is not accessible, right? And I'm very like, I don't think I'm very happy that they have made it, because it's not something that they have bestowed upon a person with disability. It was their responsibility to
Yeah.
do so. They have only delayed it, right?
Mhm.
So we should not really appreciate those efforts. I will be very blunt. Don't appreciate their effort because they have only delayed it. They should have done it a long time back, right? So there are a lot of experiences. What you guys see is only infrastructure barrier, right? There are also attitudinal barriers,
Mhm.
which we don't see and people don't actually acknowledge, right? So very an attitudinal barrier is something that is at the core of all the barriers, because if you realize the needs of the people with disability, you'll realize what you have to do, right? So had you acknowledged the problem that say a person with wheelchair, how a person with wheelchair is gonna climb the hostel because there was no ramp, if you had that understanding, you would have built that ramp a long time back, right? So I think in our college, the administration and even the faculty members have a lot to learn on this subject, on the disability sector, and I hope that someday there is a subject wherein a disability is actually taught in the mainstream in law school, and maybe that is going to be the day that attitudinal barriers are going to be removed, and the persons, because there is a 5% reservation in education for person with disability. So in your batch of 180, 5% are person with disability minimum, right? There might be many more, right?
Yeah.
And I also think that when people come in law school, there is so much attitudinal barrier, and there is so much stereotype around this thing called disability, that people don't very voluntarily come forward to say that this is something that I need. So a
Yeah.
person who might be difficult in seeing might not be able to say to a teacher, that's whatever you are writing, I'm not able to see. Can you write it in a big font, or can you
Yeah.
write in a legible font, right?
Mm.
Or someone hard of hearing might not be able to like hear or read lips. So because of our mass culture, obviously. So these are the difficulties
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people have, and I think this is the attitudinal barrier that I think you able-bodied people should convey, that we do understand the needs, right? I think that is going to be the day our campus is actually going to be become accessible, and not just building ramps or lifts. That
Yeah.
is not an accessibility that is there.
So you believe there needs to be a more soft approach in people's sensibilities as well, rather than just making infrastructure, right?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the soft approach. Yeah, there is one visible disability, there is one invisible disability. Visible is something that you see, the people that a person is struggling. Invisible is something that you don't see, right? So you can't understand. You'll say that, see, we have built this ramp so our campus is accessible, but the ramps are for people who have visible disability, who are hard,
Yeah.
can't walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about the person who have mental disability, who are hard, who can't hear or who can't speak? You can't just see them and tell they have a disability, but they do. And there are so much forms. There are 21 forms of disability under the act, right? And there are many more. So that is something. So a lot of learning and as well as de-learning is required to actually say that we have made our campus accessible, or we have made our students more accommodating to the needs of person with disabilities.
Okay. So now this question I feel would could be a little controversial. I don't know. But sir, so from your LinkedIn profile, I mean, from whatever I could see, I'm not sure if you have done any moot in your college life. So could I ask you that? Have you?
I'm all for controversial question, and I don't regret any decision. Yeah, so you're right. I haven't. In my first second year, there was opportunities when I almost did because, but ultimately at the last moment, on a couple of occasions, something very unpredictable happened, and so I couldn't participate or go forward with it. I did a lot of research, and I almost prepared my memo. So yeah, that was true. And in my fourth year, I did this because I am from honors IP. IP is something that really interests me, intellectual property, right? So I did this Oxford IP, and we did clear this our college rounds to
Mm-hmm.
represent at Oxford, but unfortunately we couldn't make it to the top 25 on world rounds, right? So that was a major setback. And then yeah, that is the all. And I don't think yeah, mood is a very good experience to have, and ultimately in your law school you definitely should, there is no excuse for not doing it regularly. I hope I obviously hope that I should have done, right? But I don't regret because I managed to do other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason. But don't make don't ever make an excuse for not doing it, right? You
Okay.
might think that if I'm not doing it, I will do something else.
Yeah.
That's no excuse. I mean, maybe just try it, and while trying it, while researching or studying, you might come up with thing that might interest you, and after the mood, you can build upon it, right? So I think yeah, you should definitely do it.
Okay, so that's actually the reason why I asked this question, because one, I feel mooting is a big thing in RML particularly. A lot of people do it. It has a certain amount of hype to it, but also because research is a very essential part of mooting. So, I mean, if someone is very interested in research, is it like compulsory for that person to do moot? Because do you think like they're kind of correlated, or do you think they kind of help each other out, or something like that?
Definitely, they are very well connected and very well related, because you can't be a good motor if you are not a good researcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a good researcher, because I think judges look for the content in the arguments rather the length of the argument, right? So if you follow that approach, that you will give 2 lines, but you will give something that is worth it instead
Mm-hmm.
of going for 20 lines, right? So people, there is a assumption, I think, and a rightful assumption, because people think that people who are from have a very good oratory skills
Mm-hmm.
are a very good motor.
Yeah.
I don't think so. A very good friend of mine was was one of the best motor, right? And I she never admitted that she was very good at orator, right? So I think that should not be the stereotype, there should not be a stereotype around anything, not even in the research field, not even the mooting, right? Everything has its own charm, everything has its own benefits, everything has its own experiences to learn from. And definitely, if you're in law school, mooting is one of the essential part, because the Bar Council of India actually prescribe mooting as one of the subjects to be compulsory taught in law school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you should acknowledge that mooting is one of the essential part, and you should definitely go it. You might not like it because of the experiences you had, right? But you will only know that you don't like it once you do it,
Yeah.
right? So for to know what you like it, you must first have to do that thing to know, right? So I think that there shouldn't be a stereotype around anything, and you should definitely explore all the competitions that our colleges hold, because there are so many
Mm-hmm.
both the semester. Every second week or third week there is some competition. I think
Yeah.
all you should participate in all the events.
Okay. So now, coming on to the big question. So you were a LAMP fellow at the RS Legislative. So now, could you like give us an in-depth view into what it is, how you came about, to become a LAMP fellow? What was your journey like? What all it entails? What are your goals after it? All of that. So.
Um, so you mentioned you were, I'm still am a Lamb Fellow. I'm still serving. So yeah, Lamb Fellowship is something unique, because it gives you both policy as well as legislative angle, if I may say so, sphere to work upon or work in, right? And Lamb Fellowship was not because if you already know, our many seniors were also lamb fellows, right? My immediate senior, my senior before that, a lot of lamb fellows are from RML, right? RML has one of the highest success rate among all universities of giving lamb fellows. So that was one of the part, and the lamb fellowship, I wanted to go into research, right? Okay, so because that was the thing that I got an interest in, that I realized I am fairly good at writing, and I'm fairly good at expressing arguments or analyzing a topic, right? So I thought ki Lamb Fellowship will be a good opportunity or a platform to learn, actually, because you will be in such a close proximity to the parliament. You'll be directly working with an MP, right? And I don't think I'm allowed to mention the MP I'm working right now, but I can give an hint that he's one of the best orator in the parliament, and he's also a lawyer or a barrister. So that's a lot enough evidence for people to figure it out who he is. So, and the good part of it is being that I'm the only one as a researcher in his office. So, right. So I get a lot of interaction, a lot of face time with him, and he's very inclined to listen to the thoughts or the ideas that I have. So this is one of the advantage of LAMP, that if you get a good or right, I mean, if you get lucky enough, you get a MP that aligns with your understanding or aligns with your thoughts and is very welcoming to your thoughts, there's a lot of opportunities to do, right? And how I came about is obviously research was one of the part. The second part was obviously since I worked on a disability sector, I thought LAM fellowship is something wherein I will be very in a close proximity with the legislature as well as executive, right? And legislature and executive at the highest level don't have enough representation of disabled people or even a disabled knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have it, your policies and law are obviously going to be inherently flawed, right?
Yeah.
So the whatever the limited resources I have, so I thought this is the opportunity of making something at the highest level, and definitely I should go in. uh, what I plan to do after this is obviously I wanted to do my LLM, which I postponed, right? So something that I'll do now in the obviously most probably in the IP or the human rights issue. So intellectual property is something, or after MLM, I'm thinking of joining this intellectual property space, either on the policy side or on the practical side in terms of litigation or even a law firm. So yeah, that is something I have an option to, and I'll definitely gonna do. So pharma is something that not of people many know that I'm interested in. That I've also worked a lot in the pharma sector, IP as IP in pharma.
Mm. Okay. So now coming on to research, sir, as that is your main domain. So how did you exactly find that your interest lies in that particular field? Was it like, did it something, was it accidental, or did you like have a long drawn thought process behind it?
Uh, you don't get a time to actually devise a thought process for anything. I mean, the best part of it of doing a law school is you should just have fun. Okay? Do random stuff, do stuff you haven't done before. Okay? Experiment with everything. Some things might click, some things might don't, but you have to do. I mean, whatever it's in your comfort zone. Obviously, you don't have to go out of it. So research is not something I even knew existed as a field, to be honest, right? So as I mentioned that reading was very something that I was fond of. So as I mentioned, those judgments, I mean, that I think was something that actually pushed me into writing those landmark judgments. So when I started writing my blog, so I realized that I'm able to fairly articulate my thoughts well, right? And something that I should now work upon. So I started writing a few research paper on the issues that I thought might be good, and I had no idea that it will get published because I had not even an inch of confidence on me that I'm a good writer. Again, but I sent it, and it got rejected. Obviously, on the initial couple of occasions, it got rejected. Then it got accepted, and then few got accepted, and some few got rejected. So that is how all got started. I never planned any topic, right? So I used to read judgment. I mean, judgment reading is something I grew a habit of from second year, or almost late second year, third year. So that was something, when you read a judgment and then you something will definitely click. This will stay with you, a quote or a law or a loophole. And you
Mm-hmm.
think, what would have happened had it not been this, had it not been this way, or had this provision not been there, or provision of this or this language of the provision would have been different, right? So because I remember this, because this first paper I wrote was on section 498A of IPC, intellectual property, right? Which which I wrote what would have been had this interpretation been different of this provision, which is related to dowry, right? And I was very happy that the when I wrote 6 months later, a judgment on the same line, on the similar understanding of that provision came, right? So that gave you a confidence that yes, whatever the reasoning you were thinking was right. So I think that is something. And when you start writing, you obviously accumulate a knowledge, right? So accumulation of knowledge is very important, and also you get to learn where to find. So one of the essential element of research is to know where to find things, where to find stuff, that's arguments or the resources that you're looking at.
Mm.
That is one of very important, because if you don't know where to find, your mind will get saturated because of the efforts you put in. You don't know where to find a particular judgment, you'll go through the Google 10 pages, 15 pages, your mind will get saturated and will say it's not worth it, it's worthless, there is no issue. So that is, you have to be patient. You'll make it's like trial and hit, like, so error, hit and error process, that you will hit sometime, you won't hit sometime. So yeah, research is not planned, and I don't think anyone plans on doing research specifically in the initial years. Yeah, later on in fourth or fifth year, you might have realized that, yeah, I'm good at it, I'm going to write for it, and that is how it unfolds. So yeah, and you I think one of the uh, this push factor the people usually have is the sense of satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
So if you write something and it gets quoted or it gets referred anywhere, I'm not saying in the judgment, anywhere, or even you may, for example, an article you wrote and it gets retweeted or re-shared, posted by
Yeah.
someone you idealize, right? You get the sense of confidence that, see what I'm writing, this people also and agrees with it, and he or she is sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that push factor or that sense of acknowledgement and satisfaction is one of the essential element of going into the research.
Okay. So now this is a question that I've had for a long time now. So seeing that this podcast would not just be for students for RML or from NLUs, because sadly CLAT is a completely different pattern now. It's very English based now. But there are
Yeah,
people from other colleges, be it a law school, be it from any college. So there are people from all around the country who are not very good or very proficient in English. They could be proficient in their mother tongue or any other language. So how can they carve their path in the field of research and writing? For someone who's not very proficient in English and uh, very easygoing in it.
you know, I would take this opportunity through this platform to I hope that people at the CLAT decision making are listening, that please get rid of your CLAT elitism, because a form that is worth 4,000, exam that is completely English based, that to comprehension, right, is so elitist in its underpinning that it's just, the exam is just made for that 5%, even 2% of that Indian population who can afford that, for first the 4,000, second the resources to understand that English, and third the resources to understand
Yeah.
legal understanding, right?
Yes, sir.
And even after getting the through CLAT, the NLUs, the for the sake of it, national universities have a fees that is equivalent to a private universities. So
Mm.
there is nothing national about it, right? So we should get that stuff aside. There is, we don't call national universities national in any way apart from the name, right? There is nothing national in it, because even the representation is so north dominated. You have hardly any representation from northeast, you hardly have any representation from south. So we should that is one of the biggest drawback of this CLAT, and this is not, as you mentioned, that people from non-law background or people from even a background who are just not having enough resources, even if they get into an LU or get into proper university to pay, right? What can they do? uh, I remember a quote from late Professor Madhav Menon, who actually founded this concept of 5-year law course, right? So the reason he started this 5 years law course was to make India a legal hub in terms of litigation and in terms of lawyer skills, because he thought, just give me a minute, I think. Yeah. So because he wanted when these 5-year law course will give students the resources to get a proper understanding of both social, political, economic, and legal uh, underpinnings of an issue. and the entire landscape of our legal system is going to be transformed by having such a diverse young population in litigation, right?
Yeah.
And it's after 87, 85, almost 15, 20, yeah, 30, 35 years, the landscape is completely different to what he envisaged, right? The NLUs or the high, these private universities have become a factory for manufacturing corporate heads, corporate lawyers.
Yeah.
That is not, I'm saying, a bad thing. Obviously, we need corporates, good corporate lawyers, because we are obviously a market-driven economy now. So that is something they should have. But the envision that was envisaged for 5 years law course is not going into the right direction. So the people, I just want to say to the people who are not fortunate enough to get into an LU or not have resources enough to get into good proper universities, but still are doing law. Hats off to them, because they are the ones who are actually going into the direction which late Professor Madhavan envisaged, right? And I think that is what is required, because the good part of law is that it has a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
Research is not one of them, corporate is just one of them, litigation is just not one of them. There are so many opportunities, and you, when you get the lawyer tag, you also get a sense of responsibility, that trust that society has, that you have a knowledge, you have understanding, right? So I think uh, and the good part of research in specific is that it is not very dependent on resources. It is dependent on what you think or what you read, right? So if you have just an access to SEC online, trust me, if any person manages to even exploit SEC online 50%, he or she is going to be produce one of the best research papers, because there is just so much of it, right? And now there are platforms like India Kanun, or even many other platforms. There are so many blogs. The blogs started by lawyers. There are so many resources. There is this free. If you guys know that Constitution Assembly debates can be searched so conveniently on Constitution website. So I think these are the resources. The resources are not. There is no lack of resources. There is just, I would admit that you also have to have that access to know where the sources are, right?
Yeah.
And I think the people who are interested in research and who are not from law or these premier universities, NLUs or premier universities, I would just say ki, so there is no deficiency of resources. You just usually, if you are really interested, just try, pick a topic, start doing it. You'll very soon realize there are a lot of material that exists in public domain, and there is no technique of writing anything. There is literally no technique of writing a research paper. Yes, there are different fields of research. There is data analysis, there is data compilation, there is field work, there is theoretical studies, right? These are the fields, but there is no techniques of writing a paper. It is completely understanding what you make of a topic or what you understand out of it. You might define any topic in ABC, and the other person might define it in 1, 2, 3. Both are right, both are correct, right? And both will be referred in their individual capacities. So I would just say there are resources. You have to be patient with the research, and the trust your skills of understanding that issue instead of someone else telling, because that someone else telling, or even your mentor, if you have one, if you go to him or her, this is the topic and this is the understanding I have, so she might have a completely a different understanding. She might be have her own reasons, right? So yeah, that's the beautiful part of law, that everyone has their own interpretation, as long as it's correct or in line with the jurisprudence of law. So you'll have to trust those abilities. That's the only thing I'll say.
So, do you think that English as a language is important to kind of further your career into law, or to like kind of climb the ladders in the field of law?
uh, no, um, obviously not, but I won't be this very ideal to say to completely discard it, because we must acknowledge that English is our, not mother tongue, but de facto mother tongue for a lot of people, especially in the legal field, because the higher judiciary is dominated by English. Not dominated, 99.9% of our work happens in English.
English.
Our studies happens in English, right? So obviously English is a very strong factor in doing a law, because our entire legal system is based on our ancestors' British system, right? Common law system. So if you don't know English, I mean, I really feel it's really hard to grow in law field. Uh, no, law field in terms of what we understand of it, right? Because we, even I don't have enough knowledge of how district court or a lower court works, right? Where English is not even considered. If you go and argue before ADJ or a district judge in English, or cross-examine a client in English, you'll be literally thrown out of court. No one understands the language.
Yeah.
You'll have to have that patience. You have to have the understanding of the local language. Wherever you are in, you in North India, you must know Hindi. If you are in southern state, you must know the language of that state. If you are northeast, you must know the language of that state. So there is no shame in just knowing or being confident about your language, because the advantage you have by knowing your language is something other people, or people from like the background we come from, being well taught in law background, law being well taught in school from English background, from well taught in law school, we might not go before the district judge or a lower judiciary and argue. We don't have that privilege because we don't know enough terminologies in Hindi or terminology in local language, right? So there are advantages of knowing a local language, because law provides you an opportunity. And if you go in the lower judiciary, you'll have probably the better understanding than any corporate lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Because you get to interact with public, you get to interact with the procedures, you get to interact where the law actually starts and where the public actually first comes in contact with the law or the judiciary as a whole, right? So you are that connection, and I think you should be very proud of it. I think one of the question you asked was this lack of English in research. I would not say so. We're gonna one of this irony of our law is in India, research is in India, that we don't have good, I mean, don't have enough literature in local language. You know, so the literature that is generated. And I think that is one of the reasons why this academic so much academic literature generated in our country, but that academic literature is not able to percolate down to the lowest
Yeah.
level where the lower judiciary first comes in contact.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you might say that bail why bail orders, or that delaying bail even after having a bail orders is fundamental violation of fundamental right, and there is academic argument, legal argument to prove it. Lower judiciary, you haven't generated enough literature in local language for lower judiciary to actually understand, or local police station to understand, right? How can you expect them to know it? So I think that is one of the serious drawback, that we are not generating enough literature in a local language, and that is actually very much detriment, is actually causing a very lot of detriment to a legal system as a whole. I think so. We need people from local language, Hindi, Telugu, Marathi, Gujarati, every year, because I think they are the ones, if they manage enough to if they generate literature in their local language, their literature is probably going to be read more than by other people, because local language is prevalent. I mean, the local language of the state, people, police professionals, lawyers, everyone knows that. If you generate in English, in those proper legal jargons and the fancy words, just academics and the Supreme Court judges are going to understand it. So I think there is a lot of advantage of knowing a local language and practicing in one. And especially if you are going to research field, you are going into a territory which has not been explored.
Yeah.
So you are the first ones, and or first ones obviously always have an advantage.
Sir, I wanted to ask, so so for someone, for a student of law who maybe isn't particularly that interested in research, how important is it for that student to indulge in publications?
Uh, so publication are essential if you want to go in research, right? Because that's the metric that you are compared on, or you are assessed on, right? If you say you are interested in research and you don't have any publication to show, how can you prove you're good at research? How will I believe you? So publications are a metric of the research field. So if you wanna are seriously interested in research, I'm sure there is no reason why you're not interested in publication, because there is literally no alternative to prove that you're a good researcher unless you have produced a good literature.
But so, like, maybe for students who maybe they want to go into corporate, or they want to practice litigation, and they're not that inclined towards research, do you think publications for them holds that much importance for them to advance their career after law school?
So the advantage of publication is that it has a universal character, right? If you are good at publication, doesn't mean you can't go into the corporate. If you are good at publication, doesn't mean you are not a good litigation lawyer, right? So obviously, if you are clear that you want to go, for example, in the corporate field, right, and you're clear the field that you are interested in, competition law, insolvency, intellectual property, whatever the means, real estate, taxation, right? So if you know that you want to go into that field, I believe that if you have that sense of understanding, you are definitely going to produce a literature, because you know what are the loopholes in that sector, right? And that is, I think, impulsive exercise, not a forced one. And no one should be forced. That if you think that you are interested in going into this intellectual property, and then you force yourself to that, I haven't written anything on intellectual property, I haven't written anything on patent, copyright, trademark, right? But you know that you want to do, and you have interned in the IP field, in the IP firms, right? And you have performed well. I don't think that you should do that, because maybe you are a good lawyer, you just might not be a good writer, right?
Yeah.
Take it. But yeah, because writing and researching are totally different.
Mm.
You can research, but putting that in a format is a whole sort of different skill,
Exactly.
right?
Mm.
So these are the elements that are all mutually exclusive also, that they might play a role in one another field, that publication might play how good a lawyer or corporate job you get. Obviously these factors are considered, but that obviously depends from firm to firm, and I can't comment because, yeah, I am not a firm person, if you can say so,
Yeah.
or I haven't had enough interaction with them. So I think that that's a parameter that firms employ, but I don't think it's a universal one. And a publication have an own set of advantage, and only if you feel that you can do it, you should do it. If you are forcing yourself to do it, ultimately you're going to produce a literature that is going to publish on some platform, because there's no dearth of platform in today's digital space, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But do you think it was worth it? Because if you're publishing it for the sake of publication, and it's just publishing, giving a certificate, and having no sense of satisfaction, as I mentioned, that no one is talking about, no one is resharing it, or it's not getting cited. So I don't think it's worth it. You can write it, but it's not worth it, because it's only going to be lost in those these codes of internet, the web of internet, and no one is going actually going to read it. So produce a literature that is worth it, that is talked about. Produce one in 6 months, but produce a good one.
Mhm. So, so basically, one of students has asked. I think that person is interested in the NAM fellowship as well, and they've asked that is there a particular time where you can start building up your CV for that fellowship, and what is the process for that?
So one of the this I want to get this rumor or this understanding aside, that your CV actually plays a role in the fellowship. It doesn't. I would say ki, don't burden yourself with a CV. Obviously, your CV is very important. Let me also mention that your CV is very important, and you should obviously have stuff to show that this is your interest, right? So you should definitely develop your CV in whatever field you want to, but you should develop. But yeah, with respect to LAM fellowship, it is not very strictly relied upon, because the assessment PRS does is based on your essays, the policy essay you write, and the SOP that you write. These are the dominating factors of your of the criteria for selection of this LAM fellowship. And your policy and legal paper that you write must be that the paper you can write on either policy issues or on any legal issues, right? So you have a clear understanding of why you are writing that paper. If the person is listening, I want to mention that you have a clear understanding of why you are choosing that particular topic. Like for example, the paper I wrote for fellowship was Accessible India campaign. Accessible India campaign is make central government's initiative for making the infrastructure, IT sector, and transport accessible, right, for disabled people. So you see, that was very aligned to what I have worked upon. I was very clear. I wanted to write that, even if it has no fault. So in the scheme, even it has no fault in the scheme, right? So if you're clear of why you are writing it, and then you realize ki, but I can't point out a problem with this issue or a legal law, that's no hurdle. If you're able to justify why you are writing it, it's completely fine. And that's how I linked my paper and SOP. My SOP and my paper were very, very much linked. My paper showed the thing I wrote in my statement of purpose was very reflective of what I have written in my policy paper, right? So that there was a clear linkages, and I think the people who were judging it actually saw that linkages, the linkage that I wanted to convey. So I think that is the only two dominating, and if you are clear on both the aspect, you shouldn't worry about your CV.
Okay. Sir, you're very much associated with the rights and different associations for people with disabilities. So, are there any personal plans for you that you would like to, matlab, certain changes that you would like to see for disabled people?
I mean, there are a lot of it. There are a lot of it, and if you plan, I mean, the question you pose, if I have a plan on on something on disability, yes, I do have a plan. My plan is to work lifelong in the sector, in whichever capacity I will be working. Maybe I will be working as a researcher. Maybe I will be policy consultant. I might join politics. I might become a government officer. God knows what. But I'll always work for in this sector, because I think you'll have to work that hard, because even the feminist movement was started back in 60s in America. Still we are having that argument. The equality movement started even before that, in 20s, 1920s, 1930s. Still we are facing racism. I think it's a lifelong process. You can't have a plan for something like this, something uh, for plan for such a marginalized community, because even a UNICEF has called it, sorry, UNICEF, no, UNDP has called it the largest visible minority, invisible minority, right? And so that is something I'll always work upon, and I think it is important for people who are privileged enough to have reached that level, and privileged enough in a capacity wherein whatever they write or speak will be listened by people. Like you guys invited me, there was a reason, so I could convey my thoughts, and maybe the people, few of you might not have known that there is an attitude called attitudinal barrier. And by saying here, you might have realized that yes, there are so many things that we don't know, right? I think it is also our duty, the people who are in the space, to actually make, because I'm sitting here in in New Delhi, right? Having talking to a Zoom call about disability. This is academic debate. There is a person in Jharkhand, in a small district, not able to afford even a wheelchair, right? Not having an even access, doesn't know what a person with disability even means, doesn't know even what this impairment means, right? I think we should realize this comparison or this reality that exists, and as long as you know that this reality exists, you'll always will be working in this sector.
Sir, I think we've spent a good amount of time talking about your plans, your vision, and I think all of our viewers would definitely be able to not only just relate but also like learn a lot and kind of apply it to their own lives and definitely make change in the future wherever they are. And so for that, we are immensely grateful that you could take out time for us, for the viewers, and just have a beautiful conversation about various things. And we really want to thank you for being here with us. Thank you, sir.
Very, very thankful. I'm also very thankful that you guys invited me, and I hope you guys have a great this initiative take, wherein like more and more people could hear it, so that even I can get famous a bit.
Yes, sir,
I hope that,
definitely.
and all the very best to the seminar committee, to you, and to all your members.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.